Hello, everyone. I hope you all are doing great. And thank you for the introduction. And I would also like to thank everyone for having me here today. Yeah, like the introduction, my name is Amna Hashmi, and I'm an artist, a plant enthusiast, and I also go by the name as Podewali, which is basically plant lady. And my today's talk is linked with my other name, the Podewali. So, 2 years back, I developed a panic disorder after going through a series of traumatic events. It was a very traumatizing and a very scary situation for me. And I wasn't able to figure out what to do because I was not aware of that illness. I didn't know that panic attacks existed. I just thought that it's stress in general. So initially, I thought I was getting a heart attack. Um, but yeah, I would end up in emergency 3 to 4 times a day, and the doctor there advised me to seek therapy. So I went to a therapist, and unfortunately, it wasn't compatible with my situation because it wasn't compatible with my situation because I couldn't leave my house. I would get a panic attack when I would leave my house, and it was really scary. So I eventually became quite hopeless and helpless, and I didn't want to do anything with my life. I was quite scared, and yeah, so I was just sitting there all dull, all blank, and one day my father decided to gift me with something, and he gave me these six beautiful baby plants, and he asked me to look after them. It was like, you know what, just water them, and all you have to do is get up early morning because sorry about that. All you have to do is wake up early morning because you water the plants early morning or in the evening. So I thought, okay, this is I can manage this task, and I started taking care of those six baby plants, and this also helped to fix my sleeping schedule. I didn't get enough sleeping hours. I would panic all the time. I would be depressed. So my sleeping hours were like 3 hours, and that's not enough. So waking up early to water the plants helped me fix my sleep schedule. And one day when I was going to water my plants, I noticed something really pretty sitting on one of the plant pots, and it was a beautiful moth. I haven't seen anything like it before in my life. And and in that moment, I just became curious. I wanted to live another day to see what happens. So that tiny moment, that tiny moth moment was my turning point. I didn't notice it at that time that it was my hopeful moment. It was like a turning point in my life. It all happened very organically. So, and here I would also like to add that one of the I think one of the major toxic trait we all have in ourselves is the unfair and unjust expectations that we develop from ourselves. And because of these unfair and unjust expectations, we ignore these tiny moments of joy, happiness, or accomplishment. So coming back to that moth moment, I got really excited, and I wanted to live another day to see what will happen on these six baby plants. And from there, I started researching about the plants that my father gave me, and I started researching about them. I started reading about them, and I need to tell you that before that, I used to consider plants very boring. I used to think botany is a very dry subject and very dull and boring. But after that moth moment, I really got fascinated by it. And I started researching about it. I started studying about the plants and their types. And this also helped me to design schedule for me, a routine for me. which consisted of very small tasks like a 5-minute walk, going outside, a 5-minute workout session, eating healthy, drinking 6 glasses of water, like baby steps, small steps to a healthy lifestyle. So I started following that routine, which I designed for myself. And I remained consistent. I remained committed to that routine. And I also started utilizing my terrace space to grow more plants there. I don't have a lawn, but I have a terrace space. So I started growing plants over there. And I would notice all these tiny insects that would visit my garden. And I was so fascinated by their textures, their colors, their symmetry, that really inspired my artwork. So one day I harvested some basil seeds from our street, and I wanted to grow them. I wanted to, grow a basil plant from seeds. I wanted to try germination, because before that I used to just buy plants from a plant shop. So yeah, I got 3 pots, and I sowed some seeds in these 3 pots, and then I waited. And I waited and I waited for 3 weeks, but no basil plants. It was a failure. That experiment was a failure. And surprisingly, I didn't give up. I did my research. I asked other plant enthusiasts what could be the problem in this experiment. Maybe they can help me identify the issue. So in the next batch of the pots, I added compost and I sowed some seeds. And the seeds germinated within 3 days. So this is a very small experiment, but it taught me 3 valuable lessons. Like, the most valuable lessons I could learn, that helped change my personality. So yeah, number one, patience, because I waited 3 weeks and then again a week for the plants to for the seeds to germinate. So it somehow helped me develop patience. And before that, before the gardening and everything, I was quite impatient. I would be like, no, I really want this to be done right now and stuff like that. So after that experience, I developed patience. And the second thing that I developed was the strength to accept failure and loss. I mean, failure and loss is a very important, very essential point for growth. We always sometimes, not always, let the perfectionist in us dominate us. And the perfectionist is like, oh, you failed, you cannot do this again. So we don't try that thing again. We are like, okay, I tried growing growing plants from seeds. It didn't work out. So I failed. That means I cannot grow plants, and I'm not going to try it again. That's the perfectionist in you talking. And the perfectionist in you is telling you that failure, you is letting you not to accept failure. So this is the second most valuable thing that I learned from that tiny experiment. And it was the strength to accept failure and loss. And the third most important thing that I learned from that experiment was not to develop unfair expectation, was to have realistic expectations. Now, what would be the unfair expectations from this experiment, from this tiny seed experiment? The unrealistic and unfair expectations would be the seeds must germinate into baby basil plants. They should. But the realistic expectation gives you a 50-50 chance. It prepares you for failure and success, for both. So this tiny experiment taught me all of these wonderful and valuable lessons. And I kept to my routine. And I noticed a change in my panic disorder. I noticed that my panic attacks reduced from 4 to 2 a day, and their time also reduced. I would get panic attacks for like 40 minutes, 30 minutes, each panic attack would last this long, and they reduced to 15 minutes. So I kept on doing this. I kept on adding more skills and hobbies to my routine. Like I picked up knitting, and knitting, I think, is a very therapeutic hobby. I think everyone should do it. The repetitive motion, it calms you down. So I picked that up as well. And all of these healthy, step by step, all of these healthy activities helped me overcome my panic attacks. It took me 1.5 years to overcome my panic disorder, which was a very extreme disorder, and I wasn't able to do anything in my life. So all of these lessons that I learned, and I wanted to share it with other people as well. So I started a page on Instagram, and I shared my gardening experience there. And I then experimented with my artwork. I started creating art pieces that were inspired by the insects that visited my garden. And I was so fascinated by their form and their shape and the symmetry in them. So I started creating art pieces from them and started selling them. So I started working again. I work as a freelance artist. And all of this helped me come back to my work routine. I can now go out, I can now drive. So I know that all of our circumstances are different. I know that. And if I was able to take a break, some of the people cannot. They don't have that option. But I feel that the lessons that I've shared here can be applied to everyone in some degree. So the takeaway from this experience of mine is hold on to hope. It may be tiny. It may be just a tiny moth, a beautiful moth. Hold on to it, but make sure that it's useful for you, that it's beneficial for you, and it's not harmful. People seek for other harmful options, and they label it as hope. No, that's it. The hope should be useful for you, should be beneficial for you. And when we become hopeless, what I have noticed from my experience, we let the anxiety, stress, and even our negative traits dominate us. So hope is very important for a healthy lifestyle. And the second point is say no to unfair and unjust expectations, not only from ourselves, but from others as well, because unfair expectations limit our growth. They don't let us grow. They don't let us experiment, and they bind us. They restrict us. So the third point here is do not ignore the tiny moments in your life, the tiny moments of joy, success, and accomplishment. Always try to acknowledge them, because these will set as building blocks for a healthy and a positive mindset. So like that moth moment, it was like quite tiny. And that seed experiment, that was also tiny. But the lesson and that sense of accomplishment from the tiny experiment was huge, was like a turning point in my life. And the fourth point that I would like to focus on is awareness. We need to learn about these illnesses. We need to research about these illnesses so that we can help ourselves, and maybe others. We can assist them, because when I was getting a panic attack, the people around me didn't know what to do, because like myself, they were also unaware of the situation. So I think these illnesses, we can research about them, read about them, and develop some sort of empathy towards other who are suffering from them. And the final one is gardening. I would really want you all to pick up this hobby if you can, if you are able to make time for it, because it is not only beneficial for your mental and physical health, but you're also contributing to the environment. So bring flowers that attract bees, because bee population is decreasing. We all know that, right? So just plant flowers that attract the bees. And it is also sad that my brother was telling me, he was saying that it is said that look at the shapes in nature. They are more soothing for the eyes as compared to the man-made structures, like the concrete structures, the buildings and all that. So when you have that tiny green space in your house, it will affect your mental health and will improve it. So but only bring plants if you can make time for them, um, if you can take care of them, because they are living beings. So I hope this experience that this was helpful for you. My experience was helpful. My recovery process was helpful for you. And once again, thank you for having me here. Yeah, so thank you.